That's exactly Job's attitude, and that should be nobody's attitude ever. Well, Bildad comes up, and Bildad says, Job, I've got the answer. I'm your friend now, but I got the answer. You're a hypocrite. You wouldn't be there if you weren't such a hypocrite. And what was Job's answer? Job said, you make me bitter. I wish I could die with friends like you. Job's third friend comes up, and I summarize what he said. He said, Job, you just don't know God like I do, and that's your trouble. And Job said, I'm as good as you are. In fact, you'll find it over again. Job said, I'm as good as you are. I'm as good as you are. Now follow me again. Here's Job. Here comes his friends. Good friends, aren't they? Yeah. Like fellow goes to the hospital and says, what do you have? Well, I hurt right over here. Right where my grandma did the last day? Yeah, that's where I hurt. And that's the kind of friends Job had. And so one said, Job, if you had an experience like I have, you wouldn't be there. Job said, that makes me bitter. And the other said, Job, you must be a hypocrite. And Job said, I want to die. And the other said, you don't know God like I do. And Job said, I'm as good as you are. In fact, Job said these statements. He said, you are miserable comforters. I could heap up words against you. You make me weary. You put these wrinkles in my face. I'm tired of listening to you. That was those were Job's words, some of them, to his so-called friends. Now listen to me. The friends have left, and the Lord comes to Job, and Job has an experience. He sees the Lord. And when Job saw the Lord, now listen, he says, when I saw the Lord, I abhorred myself. No critical person walks with God. No way. No way. When Isaiah saw the Lord, he said, when I saw the Lord high and wholly lifted up, I said, woe is me, for I have seen the Lord. When you see the Lord, you don't see the sins of your brother, you see the sins of yourself. When you see the Lord, you don't see your brother's weaknesses, you see your own weaknesses. People who are critical, I mean me, when I criticize, when you criticize, when any of us criticizes, we are not seeing God. When we see God, we don't see our brother's weaknesses, we see our own weaknesses. And so, Job saw the Lord, then he said, I abhor myself. They had pitilessly heaped coals of fire on him. They had stung him in the tenderest places. And yet the Bible says, after he had seen the Lord, after he had seen himself, Job said, dear God, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked back to Bildad, Eliphaz, and Zophar. God bless them. They're good men. And Lord, don't let me be retaliatory again. Don't let me fight back. Lord, I pray for my friends. And the Lord said, hey, Gabriel, Michael, I've got a job for you. Job just did the thing that I've been waiting for him to do. He prayed for his friends. And God dispatched angels to give Job twice as many donkeys, twice as many sheep, twice as many camels, twice as many yoke of oxen, 10 healthy children when Job prayed for his friend. Now listen to me. I kept looking. It dawned on me about Abraham. Abraham was called the what? Tell me, what was Abraham called? Abraham was called 3 times in the Bible the what? Friend of God. Say it. The friend of God. Now, I got to wondering, when was Abraham called a friend of God? What was it that made Abraham called a friend of God? So I checked the chronological order as to when God decided to call Abraham his friend. You know when God decided to call Abraham his friend? Abraham had a nephew, his name was Lot. Lot's servants and Abraham's servants couldn't get along with each other because Abraham owned all the land. Lot was his nephew, but he was like a son to him, was an adopted son, and was an heir of Abraham. So Abraham's servants and Lot's servants couldn't get along, and Abraham said, let there be no strife between thy herdmen and my herdmen. Let's don't have strife. Let's don't fuss with each other. And Abraham said, Lot, you take whatever you want, and I'll take that which is left. In other words, Abraham wouldn't fight with Lot. Abraham wouldn't fight back to Lot. And when Abraham would not fight back, then God said, Abraham, my friend. Now, Abraham did a lot of things, but the thing that made Abraham God's friend was when he would not fight back. He prayed for his friend. Now, listen to me. There is no sin that destroys as many churches, ruins as many lives, breaks as many hearts, scars as many people, as the sin of not being right with each other. My Bible says we cannot be right with God and be wrong with each other. No way, no way, no way. There is not one way in this world you can harbor bitterness in your heart toward any human. But you say, preacher, you don't understand what he did. He didn't come to you while you were in the garbage dump of the city and turn his back on you. He didn't come to you after. Listen. Can you imagine? You know, we hate people while they live and while they're happy. But when folks die, we get sort of, we criticized her all over the country till she died and came by and wiped our eyes and said she was a good woman. We're built that way. Can you imagine Abraham coming back from a funeral service where he buried all 10 of his children? Brother John, let's suppose that you had 10 children. Elaine, that's not a good supposition, is it? Let's suppose you had 10 children. And so all of them died one time. And so we have 10 caskets lined up across here. We have a funeral service. And you walk by and look at the children. Your heart is broken, and you just don't think life is worth living. And you don't know what to do. The whole world is all of a sudden it's swept out from under you. And you walk up this aisle here after leaving the casket, and Brother Fisk says, Hey, John, I'll tell you something. If you'd had a deeper experience like I had, this wouldn't have happened. And Brother Bordway says, yeah, John, that's true. And said, if you were as good a Christian as I am, it wouldn't have happened either. Now listen to me. That's what happened to Lot, or Job. And yet the Bible says that Job prayed for his friends, and when Job prayed for his friends, then God turned his captivity. When Abraham would not retaliate, when Abraham would not fight back, when Abraham got the bitterness out of his heart, and Abraham was right with everybody in the whole world, God said, he's my friend. He's my friend. I kept on checking. I found that the Bible says that David was a man after God's own heart. And I decided to find when God said that. I decided to find out what David did that caused God to say, David's a man after my own heart. Now, in 1 Samuel 13, when Samuel was looking for a king, it says he sought for a man who was after God's own heart. He didn't have David then. But when God said, David's a man after my own heart, when was it? When was it? I'll tell you when it was. Was it after he killed Goliath? No. Was it after he took his hands and slew a lion? No. Was it after he protected his sheep with the slaying of a bear? No. Was it after he fought some great battle and won it? No. David was such a fine leader. Saul the king became jealous. And Saul said, I'll kill him! I'll kill him! And David ran from Saul. Why? Because he couldn't kill Saul? Well, of course not. David could have killed Saul. He killed Goliath, the biggest giant in the whole world. He dead sure could have taken care of Saul. Well, why did David run? David didn't want to fight back. Do you think that if I walked up and I said, Coach Price, I got a little score to settle with you. He falls down. And then Dr. Billings comes up and says, I'll get you back, preacher. You think I want to run? Huh? If I can take care of old Coach Price, I can damn sure take care of Muscles Billings here, I'll tell you for sure. Well, why did David run? David ran because he didn't want to fight the king. David ran because he was not a kind of fellow who fought back. David could have killed Saul. In fact, David found Saul asleep one morning, after Saul had been asleep outside the cave. David came up and he had his sword in his hand, and he could have pierced Saul's heart with a sword and killed him, but David wouldn't. And as soon as David refused to fight back with Saul, God said, he's a man after my own heart. You'd like to be after God's own heart, wouldn't you? Yeah, and have bitterness in yours. You'd like to be a man after God's own heart, wouldn't you?